And finally, my third post of the evening is for those who are following along in the story, are invested in it, so let's keep going. At this point in the story, we are 3 days post my husband sending that email to his entire family saying that he and I are aligned in our decisions with boundaries and that there has been a witch hunt towards me unfairly. We're 2 days post the brother-in-law, the husband of the oldest sister-in-law, sending an email that could have had the subject line Gaslighting 101. And we're 1 day post my mother-in-law sending that response that was like, enmeshment, gaslighting, projection, use all of the narcissist terms and then some. And it was like 5 pages long. As a reminder, in the final paragraphs of my husband's email to his family, he had said that the constant communication was getting to him and he was going to try to make some changes in his life, such as leaving the family group chat, which he did, and also that group chats weren't working for him in general. However, your words and preferences do not matter in this family because, again, we're now 3 days post my husband sending that email and a group chat starts. It is to my husband and it is initiated by my mother-in-law and it includes my husband and both of his 2 sisters. She asks a few financial questions. She talks about things that she wants to sell on Facebook Marketplace and then starts to talk about a vacation to Wildwood that we will all be taking in about 3 months' time. So right here, my husband is telling me what he responded back to all of that stuff. So he said, sure, Mom, I can email you back later about some of these things. Sometimes it's these scattershot group texts while I'm at work that can stress me out because I can't respond to them at the time and then forget about them by the end of the week. So he was texting me to say, I sent this to my family this morning. And me, in my passive-aggressive glory, was like, why? Did you get more texts? How bizarre. Because it's not like your family would listen to us when we say, please knock it off. And so then here he sent me a screenshot of what he got after that. So the screen I know looks a little confusing. And so his sister is so passively, aggressively, lovingly saying, let us know how you prefer communications, Matt. That way we can do it in a way that doesn't stress you out. She goes on to then change the subject to, Mom, I can try to help you sell some of those things on Facebook if you want. And then that would be awesome, daughter. And so he's telling me, just wanted to show you what they did before I leave it. And then I do a whole bunch of really nice passive-aggressive, being super supportive of him right here, being sarcastic. But it is what it is. This is going to be one of those videos where I try to sit still while I stare at you because I can say more in my voiceovers than I can when I speak directly to you, and there's a lot to get through on this next entry in the story. For those commenting on my videos, I'm falling a bit behind on my work-life TikTok balance. Between my full-time job, my children, my husband, my workouts, house and yard chores, and TikTok, of course, I'm starting to lose out a bit on each of those things that are important to me, so I need to balance more. That means less responses to your comments. I do promise you that I read every single comment, so please keep commenting. I love hearing your thoughts, your commiseration. Sometimes you have an angle I didn't consider, etc. Someday I do hope to catch up on comments and actually respond to them. So a quick recap, husband sent his boundary clarifying email to the entire family. Brother-in-law sent a Gaslighting 101 email. The mother-in-law sent a 5-page enmeshment email. The group chat picked up right where it left off, despite husband saying he wanted to take a step back from constant daily communication. We are still on that day of that group chat, so it's still Tuesday, May 18th, and after being a thorn to my husband in the group chat, the middle sister, so older than him, but the middle of him and his 3 siblings, who so far, before yesterday's post, had been pretty silent, letting the oldest sister do the guilt trips and gaslighting, follows up with an email to our shared email box. Again, husband has his own personal email address that in his message to his whole family, he said he'd like further communication to come directly there. But if you've followed this far, the family absolutely does not listen to any of our expressed preferences, so is there any surprise that the sister-in-law now feels the need to get some things off her chest, and it's going to come to our shared email box, because then Bethany will see it. I'm going to read you this email, similar to when I read the oldest sister-in-law's email to you after the disastrous conduct at the cousin's wedding. It's going to be really hard not to immediately retort about the lies, twisted truths, gaslighting within. I may not be able to fully refrain from doing so. However, I'll try because in this case, my emailed response to her comes soon. I'm not saying middle sister-in-law is completely full of baloney. She has good points, as is typical with any real-life story where someone bad is not entirely bad. and vice versa for good. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do not consider myself a hero in this story. I don't consider myself perfect. Very far from it, really. In fact, very soon here, you're going to start hearing and seeing my reactive abuse when I am finally pushed too far mentally. But I digress for now. Here we go. Hi, Matt and Bethany too, if you care to read this. As mentioned already, thanks for your thoughts. Although I've mostly made a conscious effort to stay out of the family drama over the past year, I appreciate the additional insight into where you are coming from and where you and Bethany stand. Because oldest sister and mom have shared with me how they have been feeling, I have known their perspective over this time, but not really yours. Because I think it's really important to have and understand other people's perspective, I wanted to also share with you mine. Part 2. I'm keeping this as objective as possible, but just wanted to pass on some things I have either observed or learned over time in being part of this family. I am going to be very transparent and brutally honest in the only way a middle sibling could be. I strongly recommend that if you want messages to be interpreted as being from you, then you should continue to deliver them, as you did with this email. In general, people tend to assume a message is coming from the one delivering it. Her husband does not deliver any of my messages to my family or to his. Also, no one can read minds. Really? Going back to the original big confrontation at Mom's kitchen table, I'd like to first and foremost call this what it was, a pinnacle of a slow-growing mental health crisis. I know there was plenty of context between Mom and you guys leading up to this day that is legit and still a work in progress, but it was unmistakable to me, and hopefully to you, that Mom's actions and words that day, while unacceptable, were extremely far out of her character. I say this in looking at the sum total of the 38 years of experience I've had with her, in which nearly all of her actions and words to everyone on this planet have been and are based out of kindness and a good heart. So, in the 16 years I have been with my husband, I have probably seen this middle sister 10 times. Max. 10 times. So for her to, okay, moving on. I know that in her later, now, sound and baseline thinking, Mom feels very bad about that delivery of her messages. Well, she sure victim blamed me. But anyway, I also know that day felt to you and Bethany that Bethany had a huge target on her back, and I get that. What you may or may not know is that when Mom was in that uncharacteristic state, she also said some super hurtful things to the oldest sister and I, and really let us have it on more than one occasion. However, with my super smart understanding of mental health and the state that she was in, I chose not to hold on to it. Do I remember it? Sure. Does it sting? Yes. But again, I recognize that the words she said, whether or not that was how she truly felt, was not something she would ever actually say to me in that same hurtful manner in real life. It did happen to me in real life, though. Anyway, I let it go. I had compassion for her grief-fueled, messy, manic state and let it go. You should have too. I instead pushed harder for her to get back on the right meds and encouraged therapy over and over until it stuck. Newsflash, she's not on meds and she didn't do therapy. Anyway, Mom has been through so much in the past 1.5 years since Dad passed, and I made the conscious choice to support her during this time and not continue to drag her through the mud of something that was largely out of her ability to control at the time. You've made the point in the past that the husbands... Part 3. You've made the point in the past that our husbands, so the husbands of middle and older sister, were never the recipients of any of Mom's wrath. That's true, but it's because they've likely never had conflict with her ever. If her husband, if middle sister's husband, ever had any issues with can't see it behind the record button or Dad in the past, and he's had plenty, I've found a way to communicate it to Mom and Dad directly in a way that didn't cause confusion or any built up angst, I think it says. I get your desire for space and not wanting to do every single family thing that comes up. I 100% support that. No, you don't. I remember bumping heads with Dad about this years ago in Door County on a vacation because I felt the same way about wanting time for my little family during our large family vacations. I've learned over time that the best way for me to not disappoint others was to be clear in advance on what we plan to participate in, say yes to, in more of a proactive way. We have tried that, and it doesn't work. For example, we invite, and then she says her in-laws there, that's blurred out, down to stay with us for 2 days about once or twice a month. We invite them in advance so they can plan on it and aren't left wondering when they will get to see their grandkids. I believe Mom is doing a lot of wondering. She's also super lonely. I also believe she sees the stark contrast in how often she got to see, names my daughters, I've named them in other videos, but whatever, and you guys, before Dad died, and how often she gets to see them now. I put myself in Mom's shoes and see how much this comparison hurts her to her core. I know she misses her granddaughters like no other. That said, take your space as you need it, but try to communicate as much as possible about it, and if you do want her to be a part of your girls' lives, let her know how she can. We've been in for Wildwood this year from the get-go, if my work allows, but it was my understanding that the oldest sister was struggling so much she didn't know if she could handle it. As you know, we, our last name, are a bit conflict avoidant, except maybe me. I tend to put it all out there a bit. Oldest sister is that to the extreme. She is so affected by conflict that it physically makes her ill. I don't know all the dynamics between her and Bethany, you right now, but I know oldest sister is legit confused on how this came to be what it is now. Okay. And super affected by it. As you know well, oldest sister was always the nice sister, and in her 40 years on this planet has never actually sought out to hurt another being. You're imagining it. I'm not saying her words and actions don't have the potential to hurt others. I've been hurt by them in the past, but I'm simply saying her intent is typically not to do so, and she seeks resolution faster and more sincerely than most. Anyway, we look forward to seeing you all there and spending time together. As for family communications, all I have to say is you do you with the group texts. Will you miss out on pictures and videos of the cousins and a million emojis from Mom? Sure. If that makes your mental health a little bit better, though, I support it. Hopefully the last one, part 4. I'm hearing that you don't see a way to fix what happened last year. I'm wondering how you define fix and if it is different than conflict resolution. I don't think that anyone in the family aims to pretend ugly things didn't go down in the past year. Huh, okay. I do think in general, most people do seek resolution to conflict. This tends to involve both sides taking steps towards understanding each other a bit more. Yeah, really? Maybe never seeing eye to eye, but understanding each other and accepting differences. It's my understanding that this is what families do. I am so dissimilar from everyone in this family, but I've learned the things I appreciate about each person and try to focus on those things and let go of the rest. Feelings are always valid, whether hurt, anger, guilt, frustration, peace, etc. However, I believe we are all 100% responsible for our own feelings and what we do with them. No one else can actually make us feel the way we do, but instead it is a conscious decision we all make on how we choose to react to the world around us. It's taken me a long time to learn how to own my own feelings and realize that only I can control and change them. I believe in boundaries with in-laws. I also know that if my boundaries get crossed, I first think about my in-laws' actual intent. Did they mean to disrespect or make me angry? The answer almost always is no. Remind myself that they are overall decent humans and find some kind, respectful words to express my own needs so that they can better understand where I am coming from. We have tried that a whole lot and it doesn't work. Or I ask her husband's name to do this. I also often ask myself, does this actually even matter? Because the truth is, no one knows how long we all have on this earth anyway, and what do I really want to hold on to this? Almost always the answer is no. No, I don't. Trust me, I am no relationship guru, and it has taken me years to come to these conclusions on my own, but if I've ever passed anything of value to you before as your big sis, maybe there will be a nugget or two in here that could be helpful. Signed, Middle Sis. So at this point, it has only been 3 days since my husband sent his boundary clarifying email. Remember that dumb high five that I admitted to you I gave myself in the mirror, stupidly thinking that my husband saying those things was gonna like miraculously fix things? It's very clear now that it did nothing. So brother-in-law has had his say, my mother-in-law has had hers, the middle sister has now stepped in, and so starting with tomorrow's posts, you are going to start hearing my reactive abuse. I'm not proud of it. I don't think it's okay, but I am going to share it because it is part of this story, and it is something that happens to us as victims of narcissistic abuse. It is real.